everyone, this is Austin, and welcome to Free Will Dream interview number 7. I have been looking forward to this interview, and I know this particular guest is going to be a very popular guest because her dream was centered around helping people with their relationships. And she is doing just that in a myriad of ways, which we are going to get to. But first, I want to introduce Joanna Kleinman.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome to Free Will Dream interview number 7.
Thank you very much.
I want to tell people a little bit about you before we get into what you do, because relationships, as you know, is a major part of people's lives. And there's a quote that I think about, and it's by H. Jackson Brown Jr., and it says that choose the person you marry carefully, because 90% of your success, 90% of your happiness or misery comes from that relationship.
Yeah.
Now, I know you deal with all the relationships.
All relationships, right. Not just marriage.
Not just marriage, but I know that that's always a major part of people's lives, as you know.
Yes.
And makes sense.
Yes.
You have been at this for about 18 years.
Mm-hmm.
You're a licensed, certified social worker.
Right. Yep.
Psychotherapist.
Yep.
And I also read you're a certified crisis interventionist.
I am.
And you've also worked with Commerce Bank, which is now TD Bank.
Yep.
The U.S. Navy.
Yep.
And I believe Cigna Behavioral Health.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So you've been at this a long time.
Yes.
And that's your traditional background and training.
Right.
But more recently, you're the co-founder of the Center for Extraordinary Relationships.
Yes.
And whenever we talked about this before, and it's not the Center for Good Relationships, it's the Center for Extraordinary Relationships, which we're going to get into.
Yes.
And I know there's another concept that you're dealing with, which I think is going to be very important to people, which is called dethroning your inner critic.
Yes.
We all have that voice. So we're going to get into all that good stuff. We're going to have some fun here, and we're going to learn a lot. And we're going to learn a lot about Joanna. But before I go any further, after I said a lot of things there, but you're also a loving wife and mother.
Yep.
And you've been married for
18 years.
18 years. It's
Yes.
always great to find somebody who's practicing what they preach.
Absolutely.
And you're doing that. Hopefully
Yep.
we can touch on your relationship if you'll allow us
I
as
would
well.
love to
as
touch
we go
on
through
that.
this.
Yes.
So let's talk about, since this is geared towards following your heart, following your dream, you know, obviously from a career or whatever, but it's also the relationship. But let's learn a little bit about you.
Yep.
You know, maybe we can learn a little bit about your story. Did you have
Sure.
a childhood dream growing up, or?
Yes. So I knew probably from the age of about 12 that I wanted to somehow help people live extraordinary lives. I was very fortunate in that my parents introduced me to some self-awareness programs, and I really saw what's possible when people shift the way that they view themselves and shift the way that they view their lives and the people in their lives, what's possible in really creating extraordinary relationships. So it's, you know, I always knew that that's what I wanted to do. And the journey for how I got here was I started out just a regular psychotherapist, and I worked for various practices, and in 2004 was when I started my own practice, and that was great for a number of years. But what I started finding as I was working with people is that really the quality of relationships starts with the quality of your relationship with yourself first.
Yes.
So what led me to my dream is that I opened up my center called the Center for Extraordinary Relationships. And I created a program, which is now a workshop that I lead all over the country, called Dethroning Your Inner Critic. And dethroning your inner critic starts with having the voice that says that you're not enough, and you need to be better, and you need to be different, and you need to perfect yourself. Learning how to silence that voice so that you can really know your true self and who you really are. Because when you're trying to fix and perfect yourself, it gets all over your relationships. It certainly gets on your relationship with your significant other,
Right.
gets on your relationship with your children. So that's why I created the center, and that's why I'm leading these workshops to teach people about how to, first and foremost, have extraordinary relationships with yourself, and then how that translates to having extraordinary relationships with your significant other,
Mm-hmm.
with your children, and then with the other important people that are in your life.
And it's been you've reached out to, I know, well into the hundreds. Are we into the thousands at this point,
I
would you
think
say?
we're into the thousands.
You have 18 years, so you've been at this for a long
I think
time.
we're definitely into the thousands.
And I want to make a point here, because you have a very strong traditional background.
Mhm.
Traditional, like you have a master's, I believe, from Tulane.
Yep.
But you're focused on the result.
Yes.
And I think it's important to say that, because a lot of times, especially when you come from a traditional background, we can get so caught up into the dogma of do it this way and do it that way,
Yeah.
and forget the result. And by your work and what you've created, you're willing to go whatever way you got to go to help that person get the result
Yes.
and dethrone their inner critic.
Yeah, because it's, very traditional psychotherapy focuses a lot on the past.
Right.
And certainly our pasts define who we are, but my work and my workshops are really about how you're going to create a different relationship with yourself in the present, and how moving forward into your life,
Mm-hmm.
how that's going to create the extraordinary life that we all want,
Right.
which is joy and contentment and peace and satisfaction.
Right.
So that's my focus.
And I know you mentioned it, and also it's on your website, is the word shift.
Yes.
And that's a very powerful word,
Yeah.
because a shift can happen like in an instant.
Yes.
It's almost like once you, I guess for lack of a better term, you find like that weed
Yes.
and you can pull it out or just get rid of it.
Yeah.
It's a
Instantaneous. Once you shift your perspective and the way that you've been looking at something for your whole life, and all of a sudden you realize there's an entirely different way to look at it, it changes everything. The worlds open up.
changes everything.
Yep.
What was your life before you went down this road? Was there, because we all have adversities,
Yes.
and we all have things that we deal with.
Yep.
What was the shift for you maybe that led you down this path?
Yeah. I think that for a very long time, I was very focused on the future. And I had this idea that I wanted to reach this goal in the future. And what that would cause me to do is spend a lot of time worrying and stressing. How was I going to get there? Right? When was it going to happen for me? And the shift for me happened when I started to recognize that when I have my attention in the future and what I want to create in the future, it robs me of my life. Because your life really only takes place in this very moment.
Right.
So when I gave up the idea that I had to reach a particular goal, and I started really just focusing on the present moment, what I'm going to focus on is just helping people to lead extraordinary lives and to have extraordinary relationships.
Right.
And it was going to look however it was going to look.
Right.
Right? If that's one at a time, if that's leading workshops. And so I let go of having to create my dream to look a particular way.
Right.
And as soon as I did that, as soon as I let go of what it had to look like, it was amazing. Because first of all, I wasn't stressed anymore because I didn't have to create it to look a particular way.
Right.
And then the other thing that started happening was it started happening on its own.
On its own.
And that was a tremendous shift for me. And I think whether you're talking about living your dream of, professionally what you want to create, a lot of people have that dream of what they want their relationship to look like, or what they want their kids to be like. And they're so focused on this particular picture of what it's supposed to be that they miss what it actually is. A lot of people are so busy saying, my relationship doesn't look like this, and so it's not okay. right? So they can't see some of the ways that their partners are already expressing love and appreciation and joy, right? Because it doesn't look the way it's supposed to look.
Right.
So that's what I teach people to do.
Right.
Is to just start to see themselves differently and to see their relationships and to see their lives differently.
Right. And I know that I've fallen into that trap as well.
Yes.
And I don't think
we all have.
And I don't think you're saying not to have goals, but I think the key distinction, because there's achievers out there. It's like it's got to look this way, and we're so driven.
Yes.
And that can be a gift, but it can also be, like you said, it can rob you.
Of course. Yeah.
I think that to bring up a point is that it's to have the goal, but not to stress over the goal. Let it unfold naturally. It's the same thing with a dream.
Yes.
Get the clarity, but let it unfold naturally.
Absolutely.
And you're able to do that with your work with people.
Yes. So it's about just focusing on what you want to create right now. If you want love in your life, who do you need to be to bring love forth? If you want more love from your partner, give love to your partner. See what happens when, rather than stepping back and waiting for them to give you what you want, what if you start creating it and generating it and bringing it forth? And I have literally seen people's lives completely transform in just taking on the shift that rather than you are responsible for making me happy, I am responsible for making me happy.
Right.
So it's amazing when people get that shift. Literally, they're leading different lives. Literally, they're married to the same person, right? They've been married to that man or that woman for 15 years, but all of a sudden, just in creating that shift, they have a different man or woman over there. Because they're bringing more love into the relationship. They bring more love into the relationship. What happens to the other person, right? They're like, whoa, this is pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
So then they start behaving differently. Same thing with kids, right? Sometimes parents, we're so busy trying to fix them and change them, right? We're spending a lot of time putting negativity into what they should be doing and what they're not doing. Once parents shift the way that they're being with their children, they start focusing more on what they're proud of them for, what they appreciate them for, what they love them for. All of a sudden they have a different kid.
Yeah.
Because the kid wants more of that, right? So they get motivated to do more of that.
In a good way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I like what you said. You started out by saying looking at yourself.
Absolutely. It all starts first
with
and
you.
foremost with you. Because see, when you're not content with yourself, when you're trying to fix and perfect yourself because you're broken or you're not enough, that's when we look for those other people in our lives to make us feel better.
Right.
We're not enough, but if you treat me this way, or you act this way, or you show up this way, then I'll be enough. Right? If my child gets these kinds of grades, or right, does this kind of, has this kind of athletic ability, it'll make me feel like I'm a good parent. Right? So we project a lot of stuff onto our children and who they need to be so that we can feel okay. Once we start to recognize that, completely transforms who we are as parents.
Right, and I think there's a quote that the old adage is, I'll take care of you if you take care of me.
Yeah.
And really it's, I'll take care of me for you.
Yes. And the thing is that the quality of our lives is really determined by the quality of our relationships.
Absolutely.
It's determined by the quality of our relationship with ourselves, and then with, all the significant people.
Yeah. Great stuff.
Yeah.
I know we're talking about your dream here, but I love the relationship content. It's just going to be very valuable for people.
Yes.
Well, just to go back for you, you talked about your shift and what happened to you. Do you remember, I know that a lot of people, when they set out for a dream or a dream relationship even, and you talked a little bit about it, but there's that self-doubt and then inner critic.
Yes.
And there's a belief level. And I think a lot of people are dealing with this belief level, that they don't believe they're good enough for this relationship or this dream. So in your, maybe talk through your story, or however you want to lay it out, like, your belief starts here, and then how do you go from here to build that belief up? so that you feel, I deserve this? Because a lot of people don't feel like they deserve it.
Yeah, yeah. So, certainly for me, I had to take my fear along with me for the ride. I have an inner critic, just like everybody has an inner critic, okay? But one of the things that I now know, and this is what I teach in my workshop, is that voice is not real. And if you listen to it like it is real, that voice that says you're not worthy enough, or you'll never do that, or you're never going to make that happen, when you listen to that, it guides your choices. So for me, being able to get to the level that I am at, what I needed to continually do is recognize the fear, recognize that inner critic that says you don't have what it takes, and to look at that voice and say thank you very much for sharing, and put it alongside and do it anyway. And what happens when you do that is, right, you just go out and you do it, then all of a sudden the world starts responding, right? We listen to that voice that says you're not worthy, but then you take one tiny little step towards your dream, and all of a sudden the world says, oh, I like that. Even if it's just a few people, right?
Right.
And then you think, oh, well, maybe I do have something here, right? So then you take the next step, right? And then you start getting the feedback again. And so it's just every step that you take where you're not listening to that voice, which we all have.
Yes, we do.
We can't get rid of that voice. That voice is always going to say, you're not enough, you can't, you shouldn't, other people are better than you, you'll never get to the level that you want to be. We just have to separate ourselves from the voice. We can't silence it, we can't get rid of it, but we can recognize it's not real. And the more action we take that's consistent with the dream that we want, the world starts responding to that. And that's what I had to do. I was, when I get up in front of a room and lead a workshop to 75 people, right before I get there, my voice is screaming at me. But the minute I get on stage, right, because I put that voice aside because I know it's not real, and I just do my thing.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. And there's a couple of things you said there. Is number one, you're not ignoring it. You're recognizing that it's there.
Yeah, you have to.
But it's not real. You're kind of creating a disconnect between it.
That's
Whereas
correct.
a lot of people that are unconsciously or they just don't know about it, they just make it as this is who I am.
This is who you are. You and that voice are one and the same.
Right.
When you create the space between you and that voice, in that space, that's the freedom.
That's the freedom.
You can't get rid of it, but you can certainly recognize that it's a completely made up, unreal voice.
Absolutely. And the other key thing, which is paramount, is action.
Oh, yeah.
We talk about, in the work that I do, it's always about the next logical step.
Yes.
And people can get so caught up and they're looking at the giant picture.
Right.
But just taking the next step.
Yes.
That's all it is. And you just said it. Just take that next step, no matter what's going on. Take that next step and things open up for you.
Yes. It's just all it is focusing on what's the very next step I need to take. Okay? Not what's the 20th step to get me there, just what's the very next step. That's it.
And sometimes it can be super small, right?
Super small. It sounds so simple. I know it sounds so simple, and the truth is, it really is. It's just that we think that it has to be so difficult, so we suffer all along the way. And it really, the suffering is because we think we have to get to the 30th step, and we don't. We just have to take the very next step that's right in front of us.
I guess it's because the road is simple, but we're complex. The brain's always trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Want to know everything all up front, so we got all the answers, but we're not going to know all the answers.
Well, we're trying to predict the future is really what we're trying to do.
Right.
Right? And if anybody can tell me how to predict the future, please let me know.
That'll be in another seminar.
That's right.
Stay tuned for that one.
Right.
Do you recall the first thing you did after you had this shift? Do you remember, when it was or did you have that light bulb go on, and you said, or was it just a gradual thing for you?
I think it was a bit of a gradual thing. Although I'll tell you, I read a life-changing book.
Okay, that's we definitely want to hear that.
Yeah.
So what was that book?
Well, there were two books, in fact,
Okay.
that have been life-changing for me. The first one is The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer.
Untethered Soul by Michael Singer.
Yeah, it's a fabulous book, and that talks a lot about that voice and how it's not real. And then another book was Eckhart Tolle. You familiar with Eckhart Tolle?
Yes.
He wrote a book called A New Earth, which was also life-changing for me. And he talks a lot about just being present.
Just being present. Present moment.
Just being present. And I really, it was after I read those two books that I just started catching myself every time I wasn't present. And I'm still working on it, as we all are, right? I can't say that I'm present 100% of the time,
right.
But I'm way more present focused than I was.
Right.
And there's no suffering when you're in the present.
That's true.
The only time that you can ever really suffer is if you're in the future, worrying about it, or wanting something to happen in the future, or you're stuck in the past.
Right.
So that was an enormous shift for me.
Right.
And that's it. I'm in the present. I just focus on the very next step. And all of a sudden, it's like synchronicity. All these things are starting to come to me, and I'm like, I didn't even do that. What's going on here? And it really is just because you just stay in the present.
Yeah, not to get into the law of attraction here too. That's a whole nother concept. But I do believe that when you're in the present, you feel good.
Yeah.
And you have an idea of what you want, and you take that next step. It's amazing what happens.
Amazing.
It's amazing what happens.
It is. It really is.
How did you feel when you finally knew, or I should say, was there a moment when you said, you look back and said, wow, I did it? Or do you remember, was there a moment? And if there was a moment, what were you doing and how did you feel? Were you in front of a room? Were you maybe just one-on-one with a client?
Yeah. Well, the first leap of faith I took was starting my own practice. I was working for somebody else's practice. I was, very successful. I had all my clients, and things were going great. And, I just kind of knew I have to take this leap of faith and I have to let all of this go and design my own dream, right?
Oh, nice.
So I just kind of threw myself out there, and when you're first, for me, when you're first starting a new practice, which I guess is like starting any business,
right.
How am I going to get my clients, and how am I going to, get my reputation? And, I just did it, and things just kind of happened.
So your inner critic went on vacation during that time, right?
Definitely not.
Probably started to chime up even more.
Oh,
hey, what are you doing over here?
Oh, yes.
Right?
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
So just hit that real quick, because we talked about it, but I always like to believe in repeating something again. So you went to go out on your own. Yeah. You felt the nerves.
I did, and I have to tell you, back then. So we're talking. This was 2004. Okay. So back then, I really didn't have the concept down pat of being in the present.
Okay.
So I was very focused on the future, and I spent a lot of time suffering, right? So things moved ahead very quickly in my practice, which was wonderful, but I suffered all along the way. Yeah. And looking back, I think to myself, wow, I wasted a lot of energy suffering because I was worried, right? Rather than just trusting, just putting one foot in front of the other and trusting, I spent a lot of time worrying.
Yes.
Right? So that's one thing I could say to all of you and to my younger self. It's like, let go. Stop worrying. Just do it. And just be here now and just do it.
Yeah.
And that's been a huge shift that's happened for me. I created the Center for Extraordinary Relationships about 2 years ago. And the Center for Extraordinary Relationships got created out of letting go.
Letting go.
That's really how it happened. Prior to that, I just was a regular psychotherapist, just like everybody else. I wasn't leading workshops,
Mm-hmm.
I was seeing clients one-on-one,
Mm-hmm.
and I knew that I had something to offer, and I knew I had something to offer on a larger scale.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you a story. I didn't really,
Sure.
I didn't really, I opened up the center, and I didn't know how I was going to deliver this message. And I started thinking about filming webinars, and I was going to do webinars, and a client of mine, I had really done a lot to change her life, and she was involved in a women's organization called Campowerment, and she said, I think you'd be perfect for leading workshops. So she introduced me to the owner of
Mm-hmm.
this company called Campowerment, which is fabulous company. I would recommend that you all look it up.
Okay.
And again, that just kind of fell into my lap, right? Here I was focused on, I need to do webinars to get my name out there, right? She said, come do live workshops. I started doing these live workshops, and what I realized out of that, right, out of just sort of like, okay, this came to me, let's follow that, is I don't want to do webinars. I want to see people. I want people to see me. I want to be out there leading,
yeah.
right? So sometimes it's like, I had to realize that I was going the webinar route. That wasn't really my dream, right? I was actually maybe thinking like, maybe that would be a good money maker.
Right.
Right?
Right.
That's not my dream. Because for me, I don't do this because I want to make money. It's nice to make money. I'm not saying it's not nice to make money, but that's my passion is in getting this message out.
Right.
So I got off track of my dream because I focused more on the material part of it.
Right.
And it was very interesting that it was like, it just didn't work.
Right.
It got very crystal clear that that's not the avenue I'm supposed to take. So sometimes when you're creating your dream, it's sort of like you follow the path, and part of the path is, you go here, and it doesn't work. Nope, that's not it, right?
You try it.
You try it. And sometimes part of figuring out your dream is experiencing who you're not.
Yes, that's a good distinction.
Right?
It's a great distinction.
Yeah.
Good distinction.
So then
Great
it's like you experience who you're not, which then leads you to, oh, that's who I am.
Right.
Some people have this idea, and then when it doesn't go the way that they want it to go, they give up.
That's a great point.
Yeah. Yeah. And the webinar thing, it was like every time I went in the direction of the webinar, something happened, like, right?
It wasn't your sweet spot.
No.
That's a good point.
Yep.
Because it can feel a little awkward. It's not like you may have that moment, but maybe not. Maybe it's a little awkward and you feel like you're kind of bumping into walls.
Yep.
But just redirect and
go to the
next
you gotta
step.
bump into the walls sometimes.
You got it, right.
Because it's bumping into the walls is what points you in the direction that you're meant to go.
Right.
Yeah.
So you said a lot there, but the one thing you mentioned at the little meeting that we did here,
Mm-hmm.
and I think this is great, is to happily achieve and not achieve to be happy.
Yes.
Which is a great distinction.
Mm-hmm.
And for you have that. I can see you've had that achiever in you, that
Mm-hmm.
achiever, and we have that achiever that wants to go out and prove that we can do it, or that we're good enough, or that we can meet this expectation.
Yeah.
But that's a great point for the people listening to this, is
Yeah.
that you can still get all that, but being in the moment, just happily achieving it.
Yeah, I want to say something about that proving. The proving, that's the inner critic.
Right.
Right? When we're out to do something because we have to prove something to somebody, that we're enough, right? That we're smart, that we're good, that we're successful.
Right.
That's where we run into some trouble, right? Because now it becomes about wanting somebody else to think something of me, which is never the way to go, right? To live your life trying to worry about what somebody else thinks, right? So again, that was also a big shift for me, is I'm just following really what I'm passionate about.
Yeah.
And if that means I'm talking to one person, or I'm talking to 10 people, or I'm talking to 50 people, right? I'm just doing it wherever I'm doing it.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. Letting go of the way it's supposed to look.
Right.
And just doing it.
Because it might be better than what you think it's supposed to look. That's the other thing. If you get so caught up in this, it might be better than that.
Absolutely. Well, that's what it was for me.
Right.
When I gave up the webinars, I started doing the workshops. I'm on fire when I'm leading workshops.
And I like to think that that's the head versus the heart.
Mm-hmm.
The head's trying to say do it this way, but your heart knows.
Yeah.
And then if you can get the two working together,
that's right.
It's like
magic. Yes.
Magic.
Yes.
That's great. I have other questions here, but I think we're going to jump into more of the relationship part.
Mm-hmm.
And just to get into maybe your own personal experience.
Yep.
And then how to guide, maybe say a little bit about married couples.
Yes.
And then also maybe single people.
Sure.
Because I think the dynamic's the same whether you're single or married in terms of that relationship with yourself. So
absolutely.
Let's start with what advice would you give somebody who is in a relationship but they want to go for that dream relationship, they want to take that relationship to the next level?
Yeah. Okay. So here's what I would say is we sometimes have an image of the way that a relationship is supposed to look, okay?
Right.
And so, I mean, I can speak for myself, okay? As I said, I've been married for 18 years. I met my husband when I was in college. And, you know, for a while in my relationship, I was young, right?
Yeah.
Kind of a kid. And I wanted him to act a particular way. I wanted him to be a particular way. And I would kind of get kind of critical, right? Because he wasn't that way, right? And I think that the shift in my own relationship happened for me when I realized I was so busy at pointing out all the things that he wasn't, that I was missing who he is, right? It's like I literally squashed his ability to love me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And once I started seeing like all the ways that he was showing his love for me, expressing his love for me, and I started acknowledging him for that, right? All of a sudden he started showing up differently. Part of why he was showing up, not being the guy that I wanted him to be, is because I was so busy criticizing him all the time, right?
Right.
So I think sometimes we have this idea of the relationship, the dream relationship, and the way that it's supposed to be, and it's more about us. We need it to look this way or be this way because, you know, I need you to tell me every day that you love me and how fabulous I am, right? Well, maybe you have somebody there that is going to not tell you necessarily, but they're going to show you. Right? And you miss it because they're showing you, and meanwhile, because it doesn't look like this, he's not bringing me flowers, or, you know, whatever the thing is for you. So that's why I have people start with their relationship with themselves. Because when they're talking about wanting a dream relationship, a lot of people, not all the time, but a lot of people, what they may be saying is, I need a relationship in order to make myself feel like I'm important enough or special enough or loved enough or valued enough. I'm looking for that guy or I'm looking for that woman to make me feel like I'm enough. And even if you meet the perfect guy, if you're not enough, he's going to become not the perfect guy. Because eventually they can't fill that. Eventually he's going to disappoint you.
Nobody can.
Nobody. Eventually they're going to do something that's going to upset you or disappoint you, and then all of a sudden, what happened to the guy who loved me? Yeah.
And I want to bring up a quick quote because you referenced it a couple times through this, and it's working on yourself, but it's the way you're looking at things. So there's a quote that says, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Totally.
And you brought up a couple points there. So when you work on yourself and you start to change the way you're seeing it, being in the present, you start to notice those things. All of a sudden, that person almost physically or changes.
Yes.
It creates a whole other dynamic.
That's right.
So if you could give 3 things in your personal relationship that have created the relationship that you're in right now with your husband, what 3 things would you impart?
Okay. I would say the number one thing for me is I am very conscious of appreciating him. I tell him all the time, right? I look for the ways that he shows me that he loves me, and I make sure that he knows that I see it. Right? So that's definitely something. I also have to mention my children here too, right? I have 3 kids. I have 13-year-old son, 10-year-old son, and 6-year-old little girl.
Full house.
Full house, and a dog and a cat.
That's right.
Full house. But in my relationship with them, and I've had to learn this as I go. I didn't really have this knowledge when I started out in parenting.
You mean you don't stand up and give them a seminar on how to, right?
Parenting is you're flying by the seat of your pants and learning it all as you go.
Right.
But I think that, since I've been a parent for 13 years now, I think what I realize is, even with them, it's like the more that I focus on what I love about them and just that, innate part of what I love about their spirit, it's like that shines through. And I'm very conscious of focusing more on that, whether I'm talking about my husband or my children. I'm very conscious of focusing more on what I love about them than what upsets me or what I want to be different.
Right.
And that's how I get the best out of them, because I focus on that. And a lot of people have it backwards. What they focus on is what they want to fix or what they want to change. And again, that's us too. We focus on, right? When we focus on what we want to fix or what we want to change with ourselves, how do we feel about ourselves? Pretty crappy, right?
Not good. No, not good.
Right.
Because we think we're not enough.
Right.
Right.
So we focus with ourselves on what we love and what we value, right? We're not perfect, but if we honor who we are and who we're not, right? If we accept our flaws, if we accept our imperfections,
right,
then we can do that with the other people in our lives.
Yes.
So you see how it's all connected.
It is all connected.
Right? That's why when my thing is extraordinary relationships, it's all relationships. But the umbrella, it's like all falls under the umbrella of your relationship with yourself, because that's where it starts.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
So that was the appreciation.
Yes. Expressing appreciation, honoring who that person is.
Honoring who that person is.
Instead of trying to fix or change them into something else.
Accepting them.
Yes.
Honoring and accepting them.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, and honoring, accepting, and appreciating the good in them.
The good.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, I think the other thing is just about always focusing on your relationship with yourself.
So to take your words, honor yourself.
Yes.
Appreciate yourself.
Absolutely.
For the good things that you have.
Yes.
Accept the things that maybe you don't have.
That's right.
And say it's okay.
That's right. Yeah.
It's great advice.
Yep.
Let's move on to the single people here.
Mm-hmm.
I know the dynamic's going to be very similar.
Yeah,
but
it is.
If there's single people watching this, they're going to want to know.
Yeah.
They're going to want to hear.
Yes.
What's the differentiator for the person that maybe is not in a relationship but wants to be in one?
Yeah.
Or maybe there's somebody that says, you know what, I don't want to be in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there's people out there like that too.
Yep.
I think at some level people want to be in a relationship.
Yes.
But maybe they've created a little partition saying, I don't want to be in a relationship.
Sure.
What would you have to say to those folks?
So I would say that if you're living your best life, right? If you're living your life from your spirit. And what I mean by that is really on a daily basis, consciously loving yourself, right? Because remember, our inner critic is very automatic, and it sucks us and seduces us into just this automatic way of thinking where we have to fix and perfect. And so when you bring that conscious awareness into your daily life of creating a loving relationship with yourself, that's when you're most susceptible to attracting somebody else, because you're living your life from your heart, right? It's like if you're walking around listening to this voice that says that you're not enough, what do you think it looks like on your face? What do you think you're projecting out there onto the world?
Right.
You're basically saying, don't come near me, right? And then you're wondering why you can't get into a relationship.
Right.
So that's what I would say to people that are looking for a relationship. Stop looking for a relationship. Start looking for
That's a great
a
point.
relationship with yourself. Because who you're being in the world, right?
Yes.
That's going to have people, not just men or women, right? It's just going to have people be drawn to you.
Right.
When you're out there living from your heart and honoring and loving yourself, the world is going to start relating to you differently.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So again, starting with yourself.
Yeah.
And becoming the best version of yourself.
Yes.
And like you said, it shows up on your face.
It does. It really does. I mean, we think that we can hide it, but we can't.
We can't.
No. What you're speaking up here, it's all over your face. And it's all over your life.
It's all over your life.
Yep.
And people know it.
Yep.
And,
Yep. We think we have them fooled, but we don't. They see it.
That's really good advice.
Mm-hmm.
So just to wrap up here.
Yeah.
What any other additional advice you'd give somebody who hasn't found their dream yet, whether it's a relationship or professional? You've been blessed to have both of those things unfold.
Yes.
Based on your professional career, but based on your own personal work on yourself. You're doing what you're telling other people to do. You're doing it.
Absolutely.
That is such a. It sounds so simple, but it's the truth.
I couldn't do this unless I was also doing this with myself in my own life. Absolutely.
You couldn't. There's just no way to do it.
No. So I would say for those of you, and again, not to repeat myself, but for those of you that haven't found your dream, just live your life now with whatever it is that you're doing right now. Just being present to that. Not worrying about, my life should look different. It shouldn't be this. Just kind of being with what is. Because when finding your dream starts with internal peace.
Absolutely.
You can't find your dream if you're not sort of at peace with who you are. So if you're focused on the future and what you don't have and what you need to figure out, you're not at peace. You're all wound up in here and in here.
That's right.
Right? So that's what I would say. Just start with learning to just be present and get quiet inside, right? Quiet those places where you're worried, where you're trying to figure it out, because that's not being present.
That's right.
And it will come. You just have to be quiet.
It's amazing, right? You think about this major lesson, and here it's just get quiet. And I think that is so powerful.
Very
And one of the things that I do with the people that I work with is we talk about a morning ritual.
Yeah.
And I think, to your point, or to add to what you're saying, the moment you wake up, it starts.
Oh.
So if you're not conscious,
Yep.
it's going to start.
Yep.
And then you start to repeat, and then one day turns into the second day, and,
Yes.
and next thing you know, that inner voice is running your life.
Oh, yeah.
So first thing in the morning, take time to be quiet,
Yep.
and maybe find some gratitude in yourself, or something that's in your environment, and just start that simple process. And I believe that can change your life.
Yeah.
But it's so simple.
It's very simple.
And it's like, it's easy to do, but it's easy not to do it.
It is, yeah. Because
So-
if you don't do it, you're gone,
Right.
and your inner critic has taken over. Because remember, your inner
Absolutely.
critic never leaves you. So if you're not conscious, sometimes I'll sit and I'll be quiet in the morning, and I'll say to my inner critic, "Where are you?" Because she's about to land somewhere, right? She's always she's going to land somewhere.
Right.
So if I can find her, if I can sort of cut her off at the pass, right?
Okay,
If I, right?
that's a great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's sometimes what I do, right? Sometimes we find ourselves in a bad mood. We don't even know why.
Mm-hmm.
It's because, right?
It's running.
It's running, but we don't even know it's running sometimes.
That's true.
Sometimes we have to just stop and be quiet and go,
Be
"Where are
conscious.
you? Where are you?" Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yep.
Awesome. You talked about this, but what would you tell your inner self? I think you hit on this. You basically said just relax,
Yes.
enjoy, let it unfold, take
Be
the next
present.
step, be present.
Stop worrying. Just be
Yeah.
and trust and just go to the very next step. That's all. And I do. I have to tell myself that all the time. Just do the very next step
The very next step.
and let go. Yep.
We got two more questions because we got good information here.
Yeah.
I want to keep it going.
Yeah.
What fulfills you most about your dream today?
My family.
Your family.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, my husband and my kids, right? Because,
Yeah.
you know, I teach what I teach because I practice it.
You live it.
I live it.
It
Yeah.
makes it easier to come here and light other people up. Right?
Yes, because that's why it's my passion, because I know what it feels like
Right.
to and I don't say the name of my center, right, is the Center for Extraordinary Relationships, but it's not about having extraordinary relationships, it's about creating them. I'm responsible
Right.
for creating extraordinary relationships. I didn't just find a great guy to marry.
That's a key. Yeah, that's a great point.
Right.
Because people are thinking that as people they're gonna and I think you would once
Yeah.
you work here and you're in your heart you
Yes.
attract that person.
Yes. Yes. I have to tell you, I could have, without any of this knowledge, I could have absolutely turned my husband into a jerk. I could have turned my husband into a jerk.
Yeah.
Because if I waited for him to love me, right? Got
do
mad
all
at
the
him,
right
right? To
things.
do all the right things.
On cue.
Yeah.
Right?
You know what? He would turn into a jerk because he would say, "Screw this,"
Yes.
and he would withdraw, and then he'd become a jerk. So I'm
That's very
telling you,
important.
I did not
Right.
marry some kind of. He is a wonderful man. Don't get me wrong, but
But the
right?
point is, you to your point, you worked on yourself.
I worked on myself, and I created
Right.
an extraordinary relationship simply by who I am being with him. When I am being a particular way, that brings out the best in him.
Yes.
I could
So
also be
key.
a particular way that brings out the worst in him,
That's so
but I
key.
choose to be a particular way that brings out the best in him most of the time.
Listen.
Yeah.
We're human beings.
Of course. I don't have perfect. Not the
That's-
Center for Perfect Relationships.
Right. That's right. So let's close up here by just asking you what's next.
I just want to get my message out there. I want to lead as many workshops as I can. I want to keep traveling, all over the country and leading workshops. I'm going to do one in New York in a couple of months, and I'm going to do a couple for Camp Empowerment in Malibu, California.
Oh, wow.
In
Sounds like a great one.
September, and another one in November in Malibu. So I just want to keep getting my message out there, because I think that this message can change the world, one person at a time.
One person at a time.
But I think it can.
Well, just like you said, the work you've done on yourself has changed your family and all the relationships.
All
So
of
I do
them.
believe it. One person,
100%.
every person has a fingerprint on the universe.
Yes.
And it's just a question of what's it going to be.
That's right.
So I really appreciate the time with you today, and
Yeah.
maybe we'll reconnect again along your journey.
Absolutely, I would love that.
And I just let people know where they can find you, because I know, based on the content that we went over today, people are going to want more. They're going to want to find out more
Yes.
of your work.
Yep.
So why don't you just let them know where they can find you?
Sure. My website is www.extraordinaryrelationships.net. I'm on Facebook at the Center for Extraordinary Relationships. If you like me on Facebook, I post a lot of up-and-coming events on there, as well as on my website, and I post a lot of cool articles on Facebook too.
Okay.
And then my phone number, you can always call my office, which is 856-429-7400.
Perfect. I want to thank you for listening. Stay tuned for interview number 8. We're going to have a new author and a gentleman by the name of Peter Scott, and he's got a great message. So stay tuned for that. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for having me.
Great.